وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to all of you and selamat petang. My name is Ahmad Al-Muhammadi. Now I am the Assistant Professor at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC IWM. Let me first of all welcome all of you to this discussion. That is webinar series number 4, organized by the Academic Staff Association, ASA, in collaboration with IWM World Debate and Oratory Center, IWON. So the topic of our discussion today is Crossroad, IWM 2040, Vision 2077, Convergence or Divergence. So in order to deliberate on this topic, we invited 3 panelists whom directly involved in the construction of this vision. The first panelist is Dr. Aida Nur Sharini, currently the director at the IWM Poynton Center, Kuantan Campus, Pahang. And next is Madam Zarina Nalla. She is actually strategist, a consultant who involved in the formation of several think tanks and companies such as IAIS, Dean Work Resources, and various other consulting firms. And currently she is leading a Future Studies Division under Rector's Office at the IWM. And the third speaker or panelist is the Associate Professor, Assistant Professor at the Riyasat from the Department of Economics, specialized in development of Islam and Islamic economics. And he's also actively involved with IWON, where he has been a debate and public speaking trainer for more than 15 years. So I welcome all of you to this session. As a housekeeping rules, we are going to have a 3 round of discussion based on the 3 questions that we have. So I will give the 3 first question, and then we follow by the discussion by 3 panelists, and followed by the next question until finished. And each panelist will be given 5 to 10 minutes to respond to the question. And at the end of the session, we would look at the question if you have. So we welcome all of you to ask questions if you have, and I would like to invite as well the panelists to respond to that. So I think we can start right now by giving some background of our discussion today and start with the first question. If we look at the IWM today, so we are now at the year 2020. So it means that IWM will celebrate its 38th birthday on the 23rd of May this year. So basically, IWM is 30 years old. So it means that it has reached the level of maturity. So definitely we have seen a lot of accomplishment being achieved by IWM, and of course, a lot of challenges as well that we've been facing for the past many years. But I believe that IWM is poised on the future in the next few decades. So with regard to the first question, looking at the IWM today, what is your take on the current condition at IWM today? Are we ready for the way forward with all global challenges that we have today? If we are ready to face the emerging realities today, in future, what we have done so far? So right now, I would like to invite the first panelist, Dr. Aida, followed by Madam Zarina and Dr. Yasan. Please, welcome.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, the Chairperson for today's webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First and foremost, thank you for inviting me. Initially, I wanted to start off my discussion with a disclaimer. I apologize if the signal is very bad because I'm at the hospital. I'm actually at the hospital and the line is a bit, so I apologize for that. First and foremost. So when I was invited to give a talk about or do this forum discussion, I thought of giving some disclaimers, like whatever I say is basically all my thoughts and nothing to do with the organization that I'm in. But then when I read further about what is the essentials of the discussion today, and that is the freedom of giving opinion and all that, so I thought, okay, no. So I will give what I thought. Okay. Before I move on further, I would just like to say that I've only been with UIA for the last 5 years, almost 6 years as a lecturer. I'm also a physician at the hospital. So I would say that my experience is not that extensive in terms of being part of the university community. We have been very focused in the hospital and the building up of the hospital so that the hospital can serve the community and all that. So I suppose that is part of the workings of what is currently happening in UIE, in IIUM at the moment, and where is that heading? I suppose where is UIE heading or IIUM is heading is, I suppose I can only see through my view in my window and whether or not we are ready. So in my honest opinion, we have all the expertise, we have the relevant experts, we have the what we call modal insan, the right people, right? And if we look at the university, we have all the kuliah involved. Our university is complete. And however, based on what I've gone through with all this future studies and stuff, the future is unpredictable, and you don't know what's going to happen. And it's very hard to say whether we are ready or not. But it shouldn't matter. What we should do is, from the point of view of medicine or healthcare in UIA, we are almost there. We are almost. We need actually more in terms of more expertise. Like for example, there are some that is not completed yet. Like some department do not have the specialty, and I'm certain that in other kuliahs is the same. Like there is one or two that we are just not ready, but in actual whole, we can work it out together. And currently, everybody is actually very focused on pandemic and the global challenge. And in the academic is how do we do alternative education, right? Right now, that's what we are focused on. And that is what we are focused on as well as a clinician and academician. And it's even more difficult for us because of the threat and exposure to our students. So, and that we did not foresee. We definitely did not foresee this. Nobody foresaw the coming of the pandemic and what it would do to our academic, what it would do to our lives, right? So I suppose this is a very good time to discuss this topic because we are right smack into a situation where we have to think about the future and whether we are ready. But I can say for myself, in terms of healthcare, in terms of health education, we are at par with every other university. We are ready. However, it is the method to teach, the method to move towards or move past this pandemic, move into is it going to be virtual education after this, right? Because we don't know what's going on. We don't know whether the vaccine now is going to work and everybody is going to have normal lives after this. We're not sure. We don't know yet. We hope we come back to the norma biasa, right? The one that we're used to, where everybody goes in and out of kuliah, go to lecture halls, have lunch together, have tutorials in front, face to face. And, for my students, they are able to see the patients. At this point, of course, the hope is there that we will get there, because for us in the healthcare industry, we need to have hands-on, and I'm pretty sure that other people need that experience as well. So that for us, for me, is the thing that we need to think about whether it's going to happen or not. And are we ready to face an alternative situation? Whether an alternative meaning, I suppose, what if we cannot get the students into the wards? What if the pandemic doesn't go down and there is another wave? How are we going to continue? How are we going to educate our students to become safe doctors? That is our aim when we teach our medical students. So in terms of facilities, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of resources, we have it. We all have it. It's just that we may have to modify. And how do we modify? It takes a lot of concerted efforts of all possible from all angles, and that is, I think, what we haven't overcome yet. Like if we are given this situation, who are the expertise who are going to help us to get out of it? If we are given an alternative route of B, who is the one who's going to help us, and how are we going to overcome B? right? And then I think that is the one that we haven't been able to identify yet, because at the moment, nobody is able to go further from, well, at least for me, I'm unable to go further more than this year. So think about what's going on next year. And because of the pandemic, other global challenges have been forgotten, like famine and war and all that, right? Or even in the simplest of terms, like the price of petrol or food, resources. So, but in the small unit that I am in the health industry, I think we have the resources, we have expertise, we may need a little bit here and there to add on, but it is just that if we modify things, are we up for it? Are we ready to do it? To help us go through it? That is a question that I think I still not answer yet, and I still don't see it yet happening. And I suppose because we are stuck at one moment. All of us, well, not all of us, but for sure some of us are stuck at one moment, and we cannot think about the future. And that is why that we do not think of alternatives, and we don't know whether we are ready or not. But it's getting there. It's getting there. Initially, we started with emergency remote teaching and learning. We struggled with it. There were so many ups, more downs than ups. We had to rearrange. I really pity our deputy dean of academics, because he was like having plan A, and then he had plan B, and he had plan C. That is just for the schedule for students only. I mean, and that was madness. I thought it was madness, and the reality is, for me, bahasa Melayunya sama-sama lah. Macam sama-sama, macam tak nampak. The health education. I can't really say for other kuliah. And it's not samar anymore. Hopefully it becomes clear, and we have resources. It's just that what happens, what if A happens, and what if B happens, and what if C happens? I don't know whether. That is what I thought for as well. Hello? I'm not sure whether, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, yes.
Yeah. So that is my take on it at the moment for the question that you have put forward at the moment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aida. We may invite Manager Zarina, please.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. I'll jump straight in. Really grateful for today's opportunity. So thank you, organizers. And I really enjoyed listening to Dr. Aida. If I could just carry on from where she's left off, I think she did a wonderful job explaining that the future is indeed unpredictable. I mean, it's anyone's guess really what's going to happen next, especially after the pandemic hit us. I think even the best futurists on the globe could not predict the pandemic the way it happened, and how quickly it happened in China a couple of months, and we thought, oh, it's never going to get to Malaysia, it's going to stop at the borders, and then bang, in March we were already under lockdown. So we've all been proven wrong collectively, all, including soothsayers perhaps. But Dr. I just mentioned about permutations. There are different permutations, and again, it's anyone's guess. If A happens, what do we do? If B happens, what do we do? And that's why futures literacy is so helpful. Futures literacy is being literate about the future, and it's way and way beyond something as simple as scenario planning or a strategy or a map of what you're going to do in 1 year or 5 years. Futures literacy, harnesses your imagination. You need to imagine. So perhaps, I remembered in one of my earlier webinars, we spoke to a particular university, and they actually employed futures literacy methods a couple of years ago, about a decade ago. And so the course leader forced them to imagine at that time, a decade ago, they've never heard of COVID, and they wouldn't have believed it would have happened, right? So they were forced to imagine a situation where a pandemic hit Malaysia, you're being attacked by locusts or some disease. And they had to do the map. They had to do the strategic plan, and probably laughing at the side, thinking the cost leader is a bit insane and this will never happen. But apparently, when COVID hit Malaysia, that particular institution, and I knew the person who was in charge of that project, she said to me, that we had to actually go back to that roadmap that we had done a decade ago, and half of it was relevant. We were kind of ready. Yes, there was still a lot of stuff that we needed to do, but it was great that a lot of the thoughts that we know that this guy put us through, we could actually apply it. So yes, precisely because of that, you don't know what's going to hit you, and because there's so many permutations out there. And if coming back to the question that Dr. Ahmad had posed to me, I think to WhatsApp in the beginning, that are we ready, right? IIUM has existed for close to 4 decades. We're not 40 years yet, but we are close to. And right now, we're really being tested. We're all being tested with the pandemic. What can we do? What can we do? Well, I'm not going to be prescriptive. It's hard not to be prescriptive. I just came out of a futures literacy workshop just a couple of months ago, and we are supposed to have all the answers to all the questions. But simply put, our brilliant members of the university, they all had to sit through this arduous, torturous Zoom session faced with questions such as, what is impossible today, but if possible, changes everything for IUM? And they had like 10 minutes, right, to come up with succinct, precise answers and type it into your chat boxes. It was quite tough. And some people were comfortable with the technology and a lot of them were not. And then there are other questions where, what aspects of the preferred future of IUM? Can you highlight a few? So I can't pretend that I don't know some of those answers. Online education, the pandemic hit us. Suddenly, everyone needs to be an expert with online education. Suddenly, you need to come up with course materials and tools to teach your students online and be as effective as face-to-face education. So how do you do that? Do you have the talent? You're being tested. And then deans would say, they will look at the lecturers. Who among the lecturers are expressive and can speak well and develop tools which are suitable for online education in a jiffy? And who struggles with online platforms, virtual platforms? Some people are just not comfortable. Students suffer. I have kids, and they don't like online education. They say, we can't feel it, we can't focus, mom, it's tiring. And then teachers complain, I don't know whether they're watching a YouTube video while they're listening to me. To be honest, they play all these funny tricks and I'm caught. So that's one, right? Can we prepare ourselves in terms of curriculum? Can we prepare the tools? Can we try and make it as effective? And Dr. Aida is right. I think to a great extent, we've got the facilities. To a great extent, we've got the infrastructure. It's not perfect. I mean, you can speak to the head of IT. It's not perfect. We don't have the best of infrastructure, but we're not too bad. So if we are, if a little bit of ingenuity, creativity, you can probably pull it off. And if you think of, this is the pandemic, we don't know how this is going to turn out. We don't know how this is going to turn out. Don't know whether the vaccines are going to work. Don't know how many jobs are already we have lost, and we're gonna probably lose some more. How do we prepare the students? I've spoken to several, and they're all afraid. They all tell me, I don't know whether I can get a job. Can I get a job? Am I relevant? If whatever I've studied, how do we avoid the lost generation? Are we going to have a lost generation of students who are in their final year? Okay, maybe they got a semester left. It's not too bad. How about the students in the second year or the third year? I think some of them are traumatized and they don't know how this is going to pan out. All I'm hearing again and again is we need to stay relevant. How can IIUM stay relevant? How can our students be prized assets of any industry that they decide to enter. You know, honestly, I remembered when I was in the corporate sector, I was in consulting, and just not too long ago, a partner for PricewaterhouseCoopers, when I joined IIUM just 5 months ago, and he found out through LinkedIn, and he said to me, some of my best consultants were from IIUM. And this is just last year. And a couple of years ago, I also knew lawyers, partners in law firms who used to say that IIUM graduates, they speak well, they speak English well. And, you know, maybe thanks to the debate team, thanks to the, you know, I remember my friends used to go for moot competitions in Harvard from IIUM. So I think debates is really important. I think that has taught, you know, it's critical that most students try to get into, to try and debate. You know, it should be a class activity with that. They don't need to be members of IWON, but I think it's important. I think I'm just going to stop there really. And my last point is IIUM, whether we are ready, would also depend on whether we can think on our feet, whether we are nimble, and whether we can move fast. So going back to the futures triangle, if we are stuck in the mud because of organizational structure, historical conditions, we're not flat enough, we don't react quick enough, then we're not going to be able to move as quickly. So, and when actually we can move quickly, and we can respond to the current situation and quickly move into fifth gear. You know, I'm convinced that there are enough brains amongst all of us to try and do the right thing. It's whether we can get our act together or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. A very optimistic point of view. I share that vision. Let us move to Dr. Riyasat, please. Would you on the please unmute?
Yes, after all this time, I'm still not used to it. I keep forgetting. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad, and distinguished panel members, Dr. Aida and Madam Zarina, for, you know, really well taking all the words out of my mouth. This is the problem with going last. You know, there is very little left to say. However, there are a few things I would like to say in addition to what you know, the two have added. I feel that I'm going to try and answer the question that was posed as if, you know, we haven't really looked into, we haven't used, you know, the futurist approach that is I 2040 and V 2077. And I'm going to try and look at the scenario from there. And well, and that's how it is right now, isn't it? Like we are in a situation, which is why we're trying to do this visioning in the first place. So if we were to look at status quo, and I were to say, you know, I were to answer the question, are we really ready or not? It's a tricky question. I feel that, you know, on the one hand, when you ask me if I'm ready, I would say that looking at my peers, looking at the department, I would say, like Dr. Aida has said, we have this kind of confidence that, you know, mentally we're ready. Okay, I think we kind of pin that down to our good intentions. I think also maybe because we're a more faith-based institution, I don't say this in a bad way, but what I mean is it gives us a sense of optimism, and this is what makes us different, but it's a double-edged sword. You know, while we're sitting on that optimism and, you know, thinking, you know, things will be okay. I remember the late Professor Dr. Arif, you know, who was like the father of debate. He used to tell us that, you know, don't get stuck in the inshallah industry. We like doing this, you know, we just say inshallah and sit back and hope and just assume everything will be okay. And you know, sometimes this really hits home for me, because I feel that yes, we're optimistic, yes, we're confident, but sometimes that prevents us from, you know, moving forward. And I think earlier we were discussing, and you know, we're very fortunate that, you know, Madam Zarina is with us, I found out that she's one of the debating giants, one of the pioneer debaters of the university. And anybody who started, that's something that's the culture that, they started. So I think recognition should be given there. And, she was telling us, right, that it's really sad, but IIUM isn't what it used to be. And, this is something that scares us a lot and that worries me a lot because, IIUM is so dear to us. I'm a product of IIUM. Like I refused, even after receiving advice many times that I should go and I should diversify, I refused to move. I wanted to stay here. I wanted to study in the line. I wanted to do research, in a place where it was relevant, where it would be valued, right? And, it stands up for a set of values. But, when we look at after 40 years and, the result is that IIUM is kind of losing its relevance, it's losing its place. That is, of course, a cause of concern because, we're all opt-in people here. We choose to be here because of the values IIM stands for. And so I would say that, I feel that we have this confidence that, mentally we're ready. And I think we can attribute that to a lot of our good intentions that we have. I'm willing to fight and I'm willing to make a difference. I'm willing to go out of my regular working hours and put it in like, Dr. Ida right now, she's like multitasking as we speak, she's actually, taking care of patients while, she's doing this. And that's the whole thing. But that's what keeps us going. We give that extra. And I feel that because of that, we feel mentally prepared, right? But is that enough? Okay, when we look at the current trends, okay, and I'm not only talking about the pandemic, right? Even when I speak with our alumni, right? A lot of them in the legal profession, a lot of them in consultancy, right? In the top 5 accountancy firms, a lot of them are saying that, IIM graduates are not what they used to be. They are not as, Madam Zarina was hinting that, they were well spoken, but apparently they're losing some of that flair, that work ethic is not there anymore. And so you tend to wonder what's happening. And I think it was rightly pointed out that I think the university, obviously the exec management is obviously aware of this. And one of our objectives is to create graduates, who are marketable, right? And that's a great initiative. So I feel that given the emerging realities, we are not keeping up. So if to answer that question properly, I would say that mentally, I feel we're ready to take on the world and we may have the resources, but I don't think institutionally we are ready. I don't think, we're aware of the larger picture. I don't think we necessarily have the full resources to take on the world and to change the narrative of the world, which is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So to answer the question right now in status quo, I would say that, yeah, we might have this faith, right? And that could be because of the way, we were raised and our values, but I don't think institutionally we're ready. I don't think that we have the right constructs and we have what it takes to change the narrative and, to make a meaningful difference or have an impact. So that's my answer to the first part of the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would say it is a very realistic answer. So we have faith, we have optimism, but we also have realism there. I think in essence, what the panelist was trying to say was that the future of IUN depends on what we do here. This is actually connected to the question, the second question that we are going to take on. That is recently, for example, Tan Sri Rector was convening people from various departments in Kuliah to discuss on the future scenario of IUM. So this led to the construction of the Vision 2040 and later the Vision of 2077. So would you enlighten us what this plan is all about, and are this plan a continuity from the original vision and mission of IUM, or is something new? What is your take on that? Please, welcome. We start with the Dr. Aida and so on and so forth.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. honestly speaking, if I can be honest, when I was given this topic, and I was literally going, what is this all about? What is this 2040? I mean, I had I've already went to some of the road shows by our Honorable Tan Sri Rector about his visions, but I've only been to one, and I've only heard bits and pieces here and there. And so I'm not really familiar. I wasn't really familiar until I had to sit down and prepare for this talk. And basically is just like what Dr. Norina had mentioned earlier. It's about being futurist, looking ahead. And although I have no idea what 2040 is all about, what 2077 is all about, but I'm a disaster trainer actually, and predict risks. Like, for example, we had a course and we sat down and then we were given a scenario. Okay, so all of these specialists of emergencies and disaster experts were sitting down, and they gave us a topic of, because this happened a few years back when we were having our SEA Games. If you remember a few years back, that was in 2017, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 2016. So they gave us a situation of like, what if a bomb scare was received during SEA Games, right? And you know how SEA Games occur in multiple parts of the country, like not just in KL, like several other states were also holding up spots of SEA Games, and suddenly someone calls up and say, I've already planted a bomb for SEA Games. So we had to sit down and we had to plan and predict where, what, when, how, who, right? And so this, when I looked through, and I was looking at YouTube videos on 2040 and 2077. So basically the general idea of is the question that was earlier asked, are we ready? And this vision of 2040 and 2077 is so that we are ready for it. And when I look through back, there were a few keywords that came up. It was about faith. It was about meaningful communication. When I was looking through the YouTube videos by Dr. Abdul Wahid Jalal, I mean, I think that was from a workshop done for the 2040 and 2077 vision. And there were 4 things. It was like share, open, free, and trust. And this futurist concept for me is not new. Who have ever worked in organization or in even a smallest unit or a smallest department, you would always have to think about the future of the department, where it will progress, and how you're going to do it, how you're going to tackle the problems to bring about the objectives and mission of the department. In this case, we're talking about the objectives and the mission and the vision of the university for the 2014-2077. And there were more other very interesting key ideas that came out for it. It says that it has to be casual, and that you have to forget hierarchy. When we want to bring about that vision, we have to forget who we are, and that our positions don't matter. Well, they do matter, but when we are discussing and giving opinions and sharing ideas, that your position shouldn't matter. Everybody's vision and everybody's ideas are acceptable, and we should be listening to it. It was a very interesting thing. And if you think about it, this is not new. This is actually not new. I'm not downplaying the vision, the mission of the 2017, 2077, 2040, but it's not something new. Every unit, every department has all these visions that we want to be able to share our view. I want to give my ideas. I want you to listen to me, right? And from my experience, I was the first emergency physician trained for UIA. Before I even completed my master's, I was already thinking about, what am I going to do with the department? I'm going to be the only one there. How am I going to get it run? Right? So even before I graduated, like a year before my final exams, I had already talked to experts, like the consultants in other emergencies, to say, what is it that I need to plan? And I even Googled, okay, the first day I stepped back into UIA, the first day that I reported duty, which was 1st June in 2011, the first day, and I Googled how to run a department, how to build a department, because I had no experience. So the future is, I had great ideas. I had a lot of visions and things that I wanted to do for the department, but I do not know whether I was going to get there. So I even Googled, how do you run department? And the first thing that it says was, go look for the logistic. Where is your department going to be? where is it situated? What is the plan? And that's how I started off. And the rest is history, I suppose. So the idea of this 2040, 2077 is a good. I mean, if I had known this and the ideas and the concept that they discussed during the workshop, it would have been very helpful for me, actually. It talks about self-reflection a lot. And the most important thing that I thought important to me, antara semua yang dibincangkan, was the effective communication. And being a doctor, effective communication is absolutely important. Being a person who is disaster trained, communication is so crucial. No man stands alone. There has never been, I mean, we've heard about this old adage that says no man is an island, and that is absolutely true. And when I look at, I was browsing through the internet to look for information, and, you know, it listed down all this list of learning and teaching, administration, technology, what are the things you need to change, and what are the things that is possible to do, what is impossible, what do you prefer, like Dr. Narina mentioned just now. And it would have been great if I had known all this. It would have helped me a lot to actually focus, but I had a great team. And we worked it out slowly. It's taken us, 5 years now for me to develop the department. And so this 2040, 2077 is, like I said again, I'm repeating it because I think it's nothing new. But now somebody has sat down and said, let's work it out. Let's do it this way. And the most that I like is the effective communication and dare to speak. I have been known to be very loud. And some people find that annoying. Some people find that very intimidating. And this 2040 vision is, I like it. It's my personal opinion. I like it because if everybody is in tune to this vision, then you will have acceptance that I will listen first before I respond, right? And I think with the vision and mission of UIA, we have our 7 missions, you know, and we talk about we talk about reforming the Muslim thought. I think that is one of the vision of the mission statement of UIA, right? We want to reform mentality. We do not want to be what the Malay word is to berada di takut lama, always to be in one area and not moving. We need to branch out. We need to evolve, as it says. And I think this 2040 goes along with the mission statement. And I think it's very important because it is very versatile. I haven't really completely understand like what Dr. Norina was saying about the triangle, you know, doing the constructive layering. I don't really understand it. I have to go for the workshop to understand this, but it's very good. It gives us the idea that it's okay to have different ideas. When I go for meetings, a lot of people see me as very negative because I would always point out, what if it's like this? What if it doesn't work? And from this vision or the idea of this futurist and the concepts that you need to be able to do this is very good to me because you will get, well, I suppose it goes with my nature. That means I'm acceptable. If I give an idea, please listen first and let's work it together. And I think it is very good to answer the first question that was given to us, whether we are ready or not. And I know Riasat was saying that we are not ready as an institution. I believe that is true, but I suppose because I was the first emergency physician and I developed the department with very few resources. And then after 5 years, I've now been thrown into the poison center, again, as a pioneer and very few resources. I cannot say that even though we do not have enough to go on, we still have to go on. Because if we have the objectives, we have to work with our objectives. And we need to communicate. Let's say if I need a certain project done, it needs to be communicated to the right key players or key holders. It has to be communicated. And the only problems that we have so far is, I think, the biggest hurdle in terms of having a future is financial. You know, you plan so much, you have a lot of dreams. I want the poison center to have a hyperbaric chamber so that we can treat toxic patients. You know, I mean, I have lots of plans. but the majority of the problem is financial. And because of the current global pandemic, financial is again, the financial status, the economic status of the world and our country and our university and my unit, in every level of institution is affected. And you don't know whether you can achieve that dream. But this vision of 2040 and 2077, it says you can and you should, and let's work together to reach there. And these are the criteria that you need. Okay, and it was very interesting. Share, open, free, trust. These were the 4 keywords that was spoken by Dr. Abdul Wahid during that workshop. I didn't attend the workshop. It's on IWM YouTube. And it is very in line and very in tune to my belief as well. And I suppose that is one key that you need if you want this to happen, is that each part of the university, like I said, when someone told me about this, I didn't really know about 2040 and 2077. So I think that those who are willing to push forward this concept and this vision, you should go very ground level. You should get everyone into it. I mean, at least listen to what their thoughts. I mean, I know you can't fit everyone in UIA into the workshop, but I suppose there are ways to do it. And you could get everyone's opinion so that they are in the know and they can be involved. The problem with, for example, taking the vaccine and being afraid of taking the vaccine is fear. And fear is sometimes, well, a lot of times based on history, is because of poor knowledge. Okay, right? Not knowing what it is and what can do, what is it all about? Is it dangerous? Am I going to get an anaphylactic shock and die? The fear of not knowing what it can do to you, right? So if knows about this vision, I think we can be ready. It's called the Futurist Studies, if I'm not mistaken, the 2014-2077, whereby you an idea and then with one solution to a problem. That's all. I think. Back to Dr. Ahmad.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Aida. Okay, Madam Zarina, please.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. I was listening again, intensely to Dr. Aida, but I lost you, Dr. Aida, a couple of times. We didn't hear everything because of the weak internet. Essentially, when I'm looking at 2040, I was tasked to organize the workshop last November over Zoom. And our course leader was based overseas, and we pulled it off, even though it was quite a challenge to discuss it and not have that face to face and have the bonding and all that. It was done through a platform, and it can be quite artificial and cold, but it also made people quite focused and precise. And because it was through Zoom, we couldn't sort of go on a whole day. It's exhausting. But essentially, when I don't really see, in most areas, I don't see a clash between 2040 and 2077. I am not involved in all the work in 2077. I was a lot. I was involved very much in the 2040. I do, however, why did we pick 2040? Why did we pick 2040? Because we last year was 2020. So in future studies, when you want to do a projection, a trajectory, we thought 20 years would be good. 5 years would be too short. 10 years, what can you attain? What can you achieve in a decade? So we thought 2040. But there is an opinion that 2077 is kind of long. It's very much ahead, but they have their justification why. But it's really like running a marathon. You could get to 2040, and it's also a vision of the university. 2040 is specifically for IUM, whereas 2077 is beyond IUM. It's actually looking at the community. So to start off already, there are two different types of creatures. They're related, linked, because you could pass the baton on. But in terms of running a particular direction, to answer your question, there is absolutely no conflict between the two. Yeah, one is up to 2040 and one is up to 2077. And 2040 is also very grounded. It's also very focused on the university. And Dr. Ida was spot on when she mentioned finance, because we had 4 separate groups that looked at, there were scenarios that were planned, 4 separate scenarios, and the issue of autonomy, financial autonomy kept coming up. With financial autonomy, you've got freedom, and you've got freedom to chart your way forward. You're not going to be dictated by stakeholders that you don't want them to be involved. For example, these are the words that I've been hearing, which has come up quite a bit in 2040. I also think that's really much in line with the missions of IUM. It was established in 1983, for example. Education for sustainable development. It could be a new thing for some of us, but it's in essence in line with Islamic teachings that we want to humanize education. We don't want economic-centric education. We don't want to educate our students to be self-focused. We don't want our students to just think about profitability without values. We're looking at values-based education. We think the Sustainability Development Goals for 2030 is important. It resonates with the teachings of our religion. Interpretation is ours. We can interpret the goals as we wish, but there is nothing really wrong with those goals. Producing students who have a sense of amana, that they have a responsibility not just to serve themselves, self-serving, this is not the only emphasis, but to have empathy for others, to serve the community, to care about the well-being of others, especially downtrodden members of the community, the old, the sick, animals. These are things I keep hearing, like throughout the workshop, even in the literature about IUM over the years, since the time of Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman until now. Even when we look at Islamization of knowledge, it's in that same direction. It talks about values shrouded in the Quran and the Sunnah. It talks about rahmatan lil alameen. It talks about what is rahmatan lil alameen, right? How do we interpret it? How do we interpret it? Lil alameen is not just for us, it's not just for Muslims, it's not just for Malaysia, it's for whoever who has contact with us. Exactly what Dr. Riyasat was mentioning. That was one of the beautiful features of IUM that I need to highlight. I remembered as a young girl enrolling in my first year in IUM in 1992. In my whole life, I have never, ever seen Muslims from 80 countries in one place, one small campus. There were 80 countries represented on that one campus. I've never ever seen a Muslim coming from China who could only speak to me in Arabic and not in English. I can't speak her dialect of Chinese or Mandarin or Xinjiang, and she could not speak English, but I could speak broken Arabic and she could speak Arabic. I remember having a roommate who came from a part of Central Asia that I never knew existed. It was amazing. IIUM had a mission. We still do have a mission. And it was very, very unique to our university. It was not something that you can find in UKM or UM or UITM. It was very different. IUM was different, and it still is different. I still have hope that that particular feature of IUM is still very much there in our midst. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, but we just need to inject some life in it. I feel that sadly, I mean, Dr. Riyasat mentioned about IUM losing a lot of its relevance, and I think there's some truth in that. But there's no finality in that. And it's not carved in stone. It's not carved in stone. I'm really proud that in this past 2 years, the university was awarded. If some of you are not aware, Dr. Ida, I don't know whether you know, that we've been awarded the Green Ground International Award for Sustainability institution by the United Nations Environment International Association of Universities. And there's been a series of firsts really for which IUM has been, and actually we were the only Malaysian institution and the only Islamic institution in the globe, in the world, to get that award because of our work in greening the environment, our work in sustainability. These are accolades, these are recognitions. I don't mean to rub it in everyone's faces, but when something good happens, it's important to celebrate it and it's important to acknowledge it, because then it will give you the confidence to move that extra, to take that extra step to move ahead. So we need to stop running ourselves down. We need to stop running ourselves down because it's just not healthy. I feel that there are a few feathers under our caps, and it's something to be proud of. And I think that we gain strength and direction from our past. Our history gives us strength and direction. It's not something that we want to chuck aside. But where we are now is where we need to continue with this journey. We need to be relevant. We need to work with other organizations globally. We need to be able to jive with the United Nations of the world and not say, oh, sorry, we don't see the word Islam or Islamic in your, so, I think we can't really we need to keep a distance. I feel that we need to look at messages. We need to look at coexisting with other people. And it's again, in our missions. If you know our missions well, it talks about building intercultural understanding. Big words. Foster civilizational dialogue. That's already enough. That tells you so much. Civilizational, you cannot have civilizational dialogues with people who are like you. So then you're going to be talking among yourselves, right? And you know what's going to happen? Your vision is going to start tunneling. You're going to develop tunnel vision because you only speak to people who look like you. Not everyone's going to say, Qala Allahu Ta'ala, Qala Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And so, what happens to people who step outside that, who talk about ethics, values? They don't talk about a supernatural power or a being. Are we going to isolate them? I don't think that's part of our mission. Getting along with the international community is huge. It's huge. Walk the talk. And that's enough. That speaks volumes. Everyone knows we're from Islamic University, especially for the women, because we're wearing a headscarf. We look visibly Muslim. Some of you don't look visibly Muslim. I'm talking about the men. So I actually feel that we've got fantastic tools. We've got the Sejahtera Academic Framework. You know how many people worked on that framework? We've got our 7 missions. We've got our vision. We need to inject life in it in such a way that we are relevant today. I would appeal that we stop infighting, amongst ourselves, and we need to unite and look outside the doors of IUM to the world right now and understand that it's urgent. It's really actually quite urgent that we stay relevant quickly. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Dr. Yasa, please. Unmute, please.
Again. All right. Thank you very much. So what I'll do is, again, I'll just set the context before I speak. Initially, I was addressing the issue that, okay, what kind of times are we in? I'm assuming that was the first question, like, how are we placed to deal with those? And I used the term institutional readiness. And I should clarify now, and I think it'll be clearer as I speak, that when I say institutional readiness, I'm not necessarily referring to IIUM per se, but I'm referring to some of the mechanisms we need globally, or within at least our region or our near vicinities, to achieve the agenda that we need. So I believe that we have this confidence that we will be able to deal with some of the world's problems, and yet we do not have the right mechanisms in place, the right machinery in place. We don't interface with the media right when we want to get that agenda across. So anyway, so let me talk about a little more about how I perceive IWM 2040 and 2077. Okay, so because of these issues, because of the problems that we see in status quo, and IWM potentially becoming less and less relevant, I think initiatives were taken in the form of I-2040 first, right, which is IWM 2040, and Vision 2077 later on, or soon after that, to kind of address this problem. And first of all, I should say that I'm new to the whole idea of future visioning, and so the caveat is that I'm kind of new to this whole process. And but what I will say is as soon as I got I saw how it worked and I got a basic idea of it, I have to say that I was totally fascinated by it, especially because I'm from a background of economics. What we tend to do is we do something called forecasting, and what we do is we take the base of what we understand in the past, look at those trends, extrapolate to the future. And why I like this whole idea of future studies is because we do exactly the opposite. We actually look at where we would like to be, ideally speaking, and we try and go back and reconcile the two views and say that, well, how do we get from where we are, to where we would like to be? And, to me, the idea of, detaching yourself from the present circumstances, from, the anchors of the past, or, the things that hold us back, or that's pulling us down. For example, when Madam Zarina spoke of the futures triangle, basically, how we're held back by the past. I like the idea that, how we have to break free of that. It reminded me of how, the Prophet ﷺ would actually detach from the world, go to a quiet place and just meditate, because, he needs to remember his focus. He wants to get away from that environment that was pulling him. And I love that. That's the connection or association I felt with, future studies. I felt like, let's just forget about all the problems and let's see where we need to be. What is our mission, right? Where we need to go. And that's what it was all about. So when I look at when IWON and ASA came to me and they were like, look, would you be interested in giving a talk? I immediately panicked. I thought they were asking me to make a choice between Tan Sri Rector and Tan Sri Kamal Hassan, because, Tan Sri Rector basically was, overseeing 2040, whereas Tan Sri Kamal Hassan was looking at, 2077. But I agree completely with what Madam Zarina says, that the two are actually complementary to each other. Okay, and I think it's very clear that, so I think we need to talk about this idea of a crossroad. And I will say that, if we want to, so a crossroad is where we're at a juncture, right? Where whatever road we take, right, will have serious implications on our future. So if the crossroad is that, IIUM is frozen and we're not sure what to do, I don't think that's the crossroad. I think the issue is, well, do we need to change or not? I think that has been clearly embraced. I think under the stewardship of our Honorable Rector, he really, he said it very clearly, right? He came up with a roadmap and he said that, look, this is IIUM now and this is where we need to be. And he was very clear. He said that, look, our model of leadership, or our model of a university, will be very different. It'll be unique. We don't want to follow the rankings and, get stuck behind those same, criteria. We're different as a university, and we want to put ourselves on the world map in a different way. And, he took a very brave step with the whole idea of sustainability and, integrating it into the university's vision and mission. And I think we need to clarify here as well, because I remember during my Ta'aruf program as newly joined staff, I'm very much, I'm even more junior than Dr. Aida. But I remember during that Ta'aruf week, when we were talking about sustainability and we were, understanding the SAF, the Sejahtera Academic Framework, a lot of people were concerned that, oh, why are we talking so much about sustainability? And, we're moving away from Islamization and integration of knowledge. And I was very surprised to hear that, because I saw the two kind of really fitting together. I see the Maqasid Sharia totally embracing, like how to treat your environment, ethical production, all of that. So I think it's very important that staff who are joining, or even students, understand that this idea of sustainability is completely integrated into, Islam's philosophy of social welfare and social well-being. So this is something that needs to be there. So as I was saying, his idea to move the university forward, I think that already shows that we're not at a crossroads, meaning that, he bit the bullet and the university is moving forward, and we've actually integrated. And the most important thing is the way we've integrated. Before, we had our values, and I feel that we stubbornly, kind of proudly stuck to it, that this is what it means, right? And as a result, maybe there could have been a detachment of narratives. But I like the way, we're totally on board with sustainable development, and, the way sustainability has been integrated into the Maqasid Sharia. And I feel that the SAF framework, as as an embodiment of the FPK, Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, I feel that it's so much more relevant. It's like we're completely in tune with what's happening. And as Madam Zarina also mentioned, it was a great achievement. The Green Gowns Award. I went and told everybody I know, because many of them were critical that, oh, look at IIM's ranking. So many of them were concerned about, how IIM is doing. So when I mentioned this, I think it really hit home that, IIM is focusing on what matters. So I think this adjustment that we've made addresses the crossroad issue first, okay? That, are we at a crossroad? No, we are not. IIM is moving forward. So the second type of crossroad that is possible now is, if we're at a crossroads at all, is, well, is one of them, Vision 2040 or, IIM 2040? That's one. And is the other one Vision 2077, right? So again, as I clarified a bit earlier, right, philosophically speaking, the two are completely in tune, right? If we look at the philosophical bases of both I-2040 and V-2077, right? They're actually philosophically based on the SAF, right? They're based on the higher values. They're based on, right? Basically, Khalifa, Amana, right? Ilm and Iqra and Rahmatan lil Alameen, right? So philosophically, they're the same, okay? So I do not think that it's really a crossroads, but more complementarity. And it's about scale here. We're talking about scale, right? On the one hand, we're looking at a micro scale where, I-2040 is talking about IIM's role until 2040, whereas, 2077 is looking at more of a macro scale, that what part does IIM play in shaping the future of the Muslim Ummah, which is exactly what IIM is all about. So I do not see any problem with these two going together. All right. So yeah, I feel that one is a continuation of the other. Okay. And it takes into account some of the realism, that's around us, as in it forces us to talk about issues that, generally fell outside the Islamic narrative. For example, like directly about sustainability. Right. So I think this is a great thing that we're doing. In terms of changing, there's a bit of an echo, sorry. So first of all, I want to talk a little about some of the differences, because although I feel that ideologically they are, complementary, I feel that, like Madam Zarina says, that they're still completely two different entities when we think about them in terms of what they represent. So whereas IIUM is more of a, includes, birds of a feather, right? Like we join IIUM because, we're opting into a kind of set of values that we believe, and we understand what IIUM represents, and we're attracted to those values, and we're committed to those values, and we want to further those values. And that's what, makes I 2040, appealing to us. So I would say that in terms of achieving I 2040, it's definitely possible. And when we're talking about stakeholders, getting stakeholder support, internal stakeholders like the top management, in reshaping the curriculum, in changing funding models, in terms of changing the kind of students and professors we get, I feel that we can kind of shape those things in time. It's more about logistics. It's more about administration. So I think, when we look at I 2040, I feel that it's a lot more achievable, right? Because, it's about opt-ins. It has a group of people who are similar minded, and we want to achieve something, and we agree to unite under that banner. Okay, but now when we look at 2077, right, this is where that we have to take that idealism and, make sure it catches on to the outside world. And this is where my point about institutional readiness becomes important. Because now, when you want to change the values of a society, right, like this is truly a vision, as Madam Zarina says. It's very hard to like look so forward and say that this is what's going to happen. And the interesting thing, as we were doing Vision 2077, and I speak from exclusively my cluster's point of view, the economics and finance cluster, and many of the other clusters too, we realized if we want this vision to be realized, okay, if we want to achieve this, one of the first things we need to work on is the curriculum, okay, the academic curriculum. So already that establishes, like, for example, we were talking about an IIUM IIM School of Economics and Finance, right? That would actually, promote the way of doing proper economics, or let's say an Islamic value-oriented economics and finance, right? And then other areas we're also talking about, other institutions of influence. So then we realized that, shaping that curriculum 2040, right, is very, very important in leading us to that next step. So it affirms that consistency I was talking about. But that next challenge is that we are looking at a stakeholder model that is completely opposite. Rather than different stakeholders like in IIUM coming to unite under that banner that they're attracted to, we have to actually make sure that other stakeholders who are external to us buy into our narrative. And how do we do that, right? How do we get people who kind of perceive Islam as kind of exclusive, or does not include everyone, right? Or somebody who feels threatened by its values because of the way media has been promoting it? How do we get people to sign on board, right? And if we are talking about, for example, like a Malaysian ummah that is embracing Islamic values, how do we move forward with those, right? So it's all about stakeholder buy-ins, right? It's about saying that, look, we have a narrative. This narrative is good for you, and it's in your best interest to adopt this narrative. Okay, and I'll just give an example of something that perplexes me a bit. Let's say that IIUM has its version of FPK as through the SAF, the Sejahtera academic framework. But if you look at UKM, they also have their version of the FPK, which is not exactly like SAF, and which probably has a different approach to developing it, right? So if we want to compete on education narratives, and we want the ministry to maybe nationalize what IIUM has, right? How do we make our one better than all the others, better than UM, better than UKM, right? Because one of the first things is like, but UM, they have better rankings. UKM, they have this, they have that, right? My point is that if we want others to buy into this narrative, and I'm just giving an example of our closest rival institutions, right? They also have their own rival narratives. So the only way we can do it is through, I would say, multi-dimensional meritocracy. We have to prove that somehow we're better. We have to show that our narrative is superior to theirs. Okay, and which implies a certain standard of excellence, right? But are we really, like, I sometimes get scared. We are designing a kind of manual for the future, right? And I get worried that when I'm sitting and doing this thing, am I really at my 100%? Am I diverting all my resources and thinking about the Muslim Ummah, or am I just filling in a gap because I have a class I have to fulfill requirements for the next meeting? And that really upsets me that it comes to that. I get it that we have to play multiple roles, but we're talking about the future of the Muslim Ummah, and when we do this, this quick patchwork, and it is not excellence. And this may be the very basis why our narratives may not be as good as others. It may affect the number of institutional buy-ins. Okay, and not only that, even similar institutions, right? Like, for example, we have Malaysia's Majlis Agama Islam, right? So this, when we look at mine, right, the idea is to get all the states to buy into what we want, how we want Islam to be. How do we do that? Right? Are we ready? Are they ready to adopt our narrative? So when we think of all these other stakeholders who we need to attract, at least, or like get buy-in, so that because remember, value change is at a societal level, right? We need to change the mindsets, or not change, but we need to realize, or like, the mindsets of people have to be has to happen at every level in society, right? It has to happen at the household level, right? It has to happen at the business level. It has to happen at the community level, right? So this is something that worries me. And another concern, so this idea of excellence, do we have enough resources? Are we really putting our 100% best when we're talking about the future narrative, when we're trying to design something? I really get worried when I'm part of the project, right? And I ask myself this question, that am I really, really putting in everything I can to do this, right? So this is one. The other thing is, given that the two hinge on each other a lot, right? How much cross dialogue is happening between I-2040 and V-2077 groups? Is there a formal platform, right? And because, like, let's say if I were to do a comparative for the economics cluster, we according to our backcasting timeline, we say that IWON will, the School of Economics and Finance that we have in mind, will actually have a curriculum ready by 2030. Okay, but when I looked at when I looked at the I-2040 plan, the plan was that IWON would have that ready in the next 10 years. That means 2040. So you can see it's a small misalignment. I get it. But these things need to be in cohesion, right? Otherwise, we're going to get into this whole carts, the cart before the horse problem, right? It will lead to coordination problems. And nations have failed because of planning like this, right? The USSR, one of the main reasons was because of bad planning. So it starts with these small little coordination problems, and it multiplies. So I think there needs to be more dialogue between, people who have done the I-2040 and those who are working on V-2077, so that there's more consistency in what we're trying to do. Again, remember, the narratives are so intertwined with each other, right? And I think those of you who are familiar with the hermeneutic circle, right? This is a problem because we need I-2040 to achieve Vision 2077, right? But at the same time, we need to define I-2040 using Vision 2077, right? So it's a circle of meaning. It's a kind of, so without proper coordination between the two and proper dialogue between the different groups of people, it's going to be very difficult. So and I don't mention these things as as things that is going to stop us from moving forward. right? But I think we have a chance to get it right, and we need to do it right, and we need to identify some of the root problems we have. And if it's a coordination problem, I'm going to say it's a coordination problem. If we're not communicating, and we can so easily within the same institution, I'm going to say we should totally do that. We should communicate with each other and make it happen, right? We need institution buy-ins. We need to have excellence when we're promoting our narrative, right, to the media, right? And we need to do it at all dimensions, right? Policy is about multi-dimension. It's not about, we give some economics numbers and they're like, yeah, we'll do it. No, right? Policy has so many dimensions. And that's why when, the Honorable Rector says that we need to break the silos, work together, we truly need to do that, which is what I mean by multi-dimensional excellence, to achieve, something so that we can have a good narrative, which which all stakeholders would be willing to buy into. That's what will give us Vision 2077. So I would say that these are the three fronts that I would like to highlight. In summary, no, we are not at a crossroads. The two are completely complementary, philosophically speaking, right? They are coming from the same framework. In fact, the Honorable Rector is actually, one of the members or the chairperson of, V2077. So I think the idea of that continuity is clear. That's established. There's no difference. But I feel that in terms of functionality, there are things that threaten, the fluidity and the way we vision the future. And I don't want a great project like this to be, sabotaged by something. Well, I shouldn't use the word sabotage, but we should be more vigilant when we're doing something so great. If it's something for humanity, we should put our everything into it so that it goes right. All right. Thank you very much. Sorry if I went beyond time.
Can I say something, Dr. Ahmad?
Yes, please.
I agreed to a great extent. But I don't agree to a small extent. Help in sort of a healthy discussion. I don't. Well, yes, we're in the same trajectory, but 2077 is really far off, and they're looking at the Ummah. We are looking at the university in 20 years. We're looking at the state of the university in 2 decades. The pandemic is ongoing. There's a big chance that IUM may even be wiped out of the educational landscape if we don't measure up, if we don't rise to the occasion and do what we need to do to stay relevant. So I think, and maybe Dr. Riyasat does not know this, while Tan Sri may be the chairman of Vision 2077, he also is the leader and the driver of 2040. And we have many members at the 2040 workshop that are also in the 2077 workshop. And it's interesting to say that that the feedback we got was that the 2040 is very grounded, it's very real, it feels very real to them. Whereas 2077 feels a little bit distant. But we need to keep that. That's also healthy because we need the vision, and that feeds us, that gives us the energy and the petrol, idealism. The day that we stop dreaming will be the day that we will all die in a bigger way, right? It's not going to happen overnight, but we'll be stale. We'll be stale. Our blood will be cold when we don't dream. But we can continue dreaming. 2077, I don't think I'm going to live that long to see a 2077. I'll probably die. I think maybe my children might live to see 2077. But the vision will keep evolving. The vision that Professor Kamal Hassan speaks about today may not be what is going to happen in 30 years. It's anyone's guess, right? But it doesn't stop us from trying. However, we don't even know whether in 20 years, the vision of IM 2040 is going to be how we all envisage it in November 2020, when we all sat together with Professor Suhail Inayatullah, trying to, get us to decide what we wanted to do with the university. It's really anyone's guess, but it's the journey that counts. The journey, the decisions that we make, the actions that we take. And I have to say actions, because for someone who's just come out of a lot of policy work, I can tell you that only a tiny percentage of policies are implemented in any projects across the board. I'm talking about if Booz Allen does it, if PricewaterhouseCoopers does it, if Pemandu does it, if Prime Minister's Department does it, if the Duke University in Singapore does it, it's only a small percentage of policy recommendations are being implemented, mainly because some of the recommendations are not realistic. They cannot be implemented. people do not appreciate implementation sciences. And as I had highlighted to Dr. Wahid in the Vision 2077 workshop, on the third day and the second day, I insisted that there should be a committee, especially for 2077, because it's really, really far off. There should be a committee when their job is just to focus on recommendations and implementation. Recommendations and action, recommendations and action. Can you bridge the two? Because a lot of time you can't bridge the two. This is what I started working in a think tank in 1997. And most of my work was always in public policy work, either in a think tank setting or in a consulting setting under one of the big fours. And whenever I talk about implementation, I'm always told that's not your job. That's not your job. You just need to, try and make sure the recommendations are realistic, are kind of realistic. But then when you exit the project and you find out what happened to the recommendations, you'll be lucky if even one or two is being implemented, which I think is a tragedy. I think it's a complete waste of time, because I don't see the point of recommendations if you cannot implement them. So I think you highlighted a key point about functionality, about communication, but because I think the two groups are talking together, and I think there is no problem there. If I could take your point, Dr. Riyasat, but I'm shifting it to this another area. It's called walking the talk. It's called backcasting. Backcasting. Look at IWON 2040. Okay, let's just take 1 point out of Vision 2077. Let's take 1 point, Dr. Ahmad, out of IWON 2040. Okay, these are the points highlighted by Professor Ahmad Faris, Professor Hafiz, Dr. Irwan, Professor Nurlidas. The name goes on. Cut across all scenarios. No change, marginal change, adaptive change, radical change. Everybody said one common point. We want to be financially free. All executive directors said that we are losing funds. Where do we get sources of funds? Professor Nurbit was talking about IT infrastructure. We need money. Our budget's being cut. How do we keep up our IT infrastructure of that level where we need to help us with the pandemic, with e-learning and online? Let's just talk about 1 point, financial autonomy. Since the time we brought it up till now, has anyone come up with what are we going to do on the ground? On the ground, what are we going to do? I don't know. So we are going to do something, because all of us are here today, Dr. Ahmad and Dr. Riyasat and Dr. Aida and Dr. Muhammad Irwan, who's the head of ASA. He just got elected a couple of months ago. So Dr. Irwan, you've got 1 year. We need to do something. We need to do something. We need to, what's the end result of this conversation? This conversation we're having now on Yawmul Jum'ah, it's Waqtu Barakah. It's gonna be Asar very soon. May this be a dua. May this be a dua that we need to walk the talk. Maybe just one, there was, I think it was director of OSIC, Dr. Faris told me. He asked me, he said, Zarina, so what now? The workshop's over. So habis gitu saja. What now? What's the action? Practical people who want to see things move. How do we move? How do we move? This is just kalam, eventually it'll be kalam faragh. Faragh means, fadi. There's just a waste of time. We do, na'udhu billah, may Allah protect us, because even this talk, we can get sawab, inshallah, our niyat is right. But I think the onus is on me, on Dr. Riyasat. Your oratorical skills are great. That's why you're a trainer. And Dr. Ahmad, I'm so happy you're back in Istag. You're here, close to us and not in Gabang, so far away. Maybe we could think of something and try and come up with a small group of people whose focus is really 100%. How are we going to make things move? How do we make things move? Because when you do that, that's when you're going to realize all sorts of cobwebs will come up. We clear it. We clear those cobwebs. People who like to work in silos, people who say, don't touch my team, go get your own. people who say, what's in it for me? Why must I do it? People who don't like open communication, don't like to copy. I mean, that's when you're going to really clean up the cobweb, slowly take the skeletons out of the cupboard, smooth the creases, to ironing things out. If we don't start somewhere, this will never happen. This is just my desperate, sincere view that if we don't come up with some action plan and focus on just implementing at least one or two critical recommendations, we're not going to make those concrete steps. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I spoke too much, Dr. Ahmad.
No, that's exactly the question that we are going to address next, actually. What should be done? What should be done? I mean, as the IUM community, we have various stakeholders, we have various unit agencies, individual. How can we play the role in order to ensure that we will achieve the vision, we will realize the vision, we will achieve our objective? So what is your comment about that? I was just want to continue. I mean, Madam Zarina was actually speaking about this. I want you to continue talking about it, because that's exactly the question we have to answer now. Yeah, we have to do something about it, but what can we do? How can we play our role? So let us start with Dr. Ida, please.
Hi. Yeah, I actually wanted to add on to the discussion just now. It was a very interesting discussion. And I was told that this is going to be a very santai, that means I can just fit in where I need to.
You still can actually address the previous question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's coming up to the third question. Yeah. So it's like I said before I was invited to this talk, I didn't really know about it much. And then when I was given the talk and I was doing the research, and I was thinking, why isn't the person next to me talking about this? Why aren't you talking about this? I mean, these are great plans, but why is the people, here where I am in Pantan, why are we not talking about this? When are you going to let us in? I remember going to the Thai course with Dr. Riaset. I mean, I've been here 5 years, but the Thai was a bit late for me. Everyone was young new lecturers except for me. And there were questions because we were very focused on SDG. I think the past few years we will focus on the Sustainable Developmental Goals that was introduced by United Nations. And there was a question during Thai. One of the lecturers asked, what's in it for me? And why do I have to get my staff involved in all of this? Right? And it's very true, like Dr. Zarina. I'm very sorry, I kept calling you Norina, Narina. The name just flew out of my mind. But it was exactly what you mentioned just now. People will ask, what's in it for me? Why do I have to spend a lot of time on this? I won't get recognition. And that is another hurdle. I mean, in answering to the next question, like what is it that we can do? I think we have to do away with, is it going to bring a benefit to me personally? And will our efforts be recognized? The person, the lecturer who asked, the students are busy with their classes, their coursework, they are trying to get their degree, they are trying to GOT, everybody's obsessed with this GOT. And also, why would they want to be interested in this? I mean, the lecturer was questioning, why should I encourage the student as well to be involved in SDG? Now, as I think this 2040 and 2077 is still in line with the SDG, the 17 SDG, and I think there is still a question of why we should do it. Some of our lecturers are exhausted, and I'm coming back to the recognition, because what is it that we need to do is we need to involve everyone, right? We want to move forward. We need to have dreams, and we need these dreams realized. And Riasa mentioned there should be no mistakes. I think it's okay to make mistakes. We're humans. We're not perfect. It's okay to make mistakes, and we can learn from the mistakes. If we reach a crossroad, hey, it's okay to reach the crossroad. It's fine. At least it gives you an avenue of looking at things differently rather than just on a straight line. I mean, if you drive from Johor Bahru to Bukit Kayu Hitam, all by yourself with no music, nothing, and non-stop, you'd be very bored, right? I mean, you have to go and pee, you have to go to the RNR, you need to see sightseeing. It's okay to come to a crossroad. For me, making mistakes is not an issue. And I think we have to do away with all this. And I think Riasa also mentioned that we want to change values. I have to disagree with that. We don't have to change any values. We just have to make it more adaptive, or maybe manipulate here and there. I mean, of course, within the constituents of the Islamic and the religion, I mean, we don't want to diverse from that, of course. But number one, it's okay to make mistakes. Number two, it's okay to be different. It's okay to divert. I mean, the concept is divergence and then converging, correct? Like, we need lots of ideas. We need to see it from every angle. But that's the first thing I think that each of us need to do away with. Don't worry about making mistakes. Like Dr. Zarina said, we have to try. We have to do it. And I guess we have to lead by example. Somebody needs to show us. And that's why I was asking myself, why are we not talking about this? Nobody has come to Kuantan campus and say, hey, this is what we want to do. 2044. Sorry, 2040 and 2077, this is our vision. Come on, what is it that you can offer us, and what is it that the university can offer you? Number two is the financial constraints. This is one thing that, again, I'm just reiterating back what Dr. Zarina says, financial freedom. This is so difficult. When I wanted to start the poison center, they will ask me, are you bringing in money? I mean, the objectives of a poison center is to help the community, to treat patients with poison. But then when they ask you, how are you going to bring money in, you know, and I feel a bit deflated, because I'm not a businessman. I don't know how to bring money in. I mean, I get the idea why you need financial strength, you need support financially, but for you to ask me to sell, that's a different thing. And among my friends, I'm never a seller, I'm a buyer. I buy a lot of things from them. So these kind of obstacles are the barriers. And I suppose we need to, like Dr. Zarina said, like, you need to go through it, see what it is, what are the hurdles, right? What are the roadblocks along the highway? Can you go away from the roadblocks? Like, can you use a jalan tikus or something like that? Or a legitimate pathway, you know? And the only way for you to be able to see the obstacles is to go on the highway and ride it, right? I mean, we have to try it. But how do you get everyone to be involved? I think that's quite challenging, because some of our lecturers are exhausted. Again, we talk about recognition. Some saying, you know, I'm not going to get anything out of this. So I don't care about the university. The university doesn't care about me. And I have to tell you, that is real on the ground. On the ground is real. There are talks about this, you know, and honestly speaking, a lot of the young lecturers are leaving because they feel they're not appreciated. I mean, again, ideally, you shouldn't have to be appreciated, because your objectives is you want to spread knowledge. I become a lecturer and a clinician because I want to produce safe doctors. And while I am at that, you know, it is true. I was very, very not very happy when you talk about ranking. Initially, I thought, oh yeah, UIA, not anywhere near ranks anywhere. I mean, all the university are in the ranking. Why is the UIA in it? And then later, I heard that our graduates, the medical graduates per se, I do not know about other kuliah, the medical graduate, they did a study on our medical graduates, and our UIA medical graduates actually stood very high up in the ranking. They were very good. I've asked my colleagues in other hospitals, you know, how are our graduates? How are they as housemaids? And they would say, they're very good. They're not afraid to speak up. They're very diligent, you know, and I suppose it's because of the environment that the university brings in, and apart from the way it's taught and all that stuff. So again, how then do we get that same response with everything else? Right? It's not just our medical graduates, because the 2040 is for the university. And so how is it? And I think that's a challenge, because not everybody is going to agree with you. They don't want to do the same things. So how to be inclusive, or should we be inclusive? Some of the questions that we need to ask. And do we have resources? Do we have enough people? Of course, this discussion today is one of the first steps. I mean, you've done the work, you've done the workshop and all that, and rightly so. After the workshop is done, where is it going now? This is already March 2021. The workshop was in, I think, September, November. You know, what has been done, right? So how do you then spread this vision to other people? Who are the vectors? Who are the vectors of information? And again, crucial. Communication. Communication is key. When we were in the early parts of the pandemic, there was a bit of a communication breakdown, especially when the university was involved in one of the clusters. They call the cluster Bali, and university was involved in it, and everyone was so demoralized. I mean, those who were involved personally or directly with the cases, they were so demoralized because everyone outside were just shooting at them. How is it that you're a university with all the professors and that you had COVID patients? I mean, it's a disease, even if you have a professor, 30, 40 professors, if it's going to come to a patient, it's going to come. You cannot stop it. And we are a hospital. Sick people come to hospital. You have to expect them to come, right? So the outside were attacking us, that the university had to go through a lot of damage control. And the people who were directly involved were depressed, were very unhappy. So then again, that is another question. Is everybody going to be happy with this vision? Right? Is it the same? Does it go along with everyone? I like this. I absolutely like this vision. I think the university should be strong, and the university should lead because we're very, very unique. I mean, I hear the university song and I cry because it's so unique. It's so it's so menyentuh hati. It's a because we were Muslims, right? Well, most of us are Muslims. Not everybody is a Muslim in the university, but that is fine. That's beyond the discussion. But the song was so great. I loved it. The university is so unique because we have different inputs. It's not just learning about the usual, like other universities learn about anatomy, physiology, but we have Islamic input. If is euthanasia okay? Like if the mother is in dire straits, the pregnant mother is in dire straits, do we save both or do we just save the mother? So many ethical issues, ethical dilemmas, but because you have extra, the university, again, like I say, is very unique. We think extra, we think a bit outside, which not many universities do. We are ahead, although we don't go into the ranking. Right, and the proof is my graduates are high up there. My colleagues in other hospitals are very happy with their performance, and I think that is important, right? We're looking at not just the journey. Well, the journey is important, but we are also looking at the outcome. And 2040 is not that long away, I think. I mean, we thought 2020 was far away when Dr. Mahadi said it, and we're already 2021. Yeah, a few obstacles that we need to go over. Communication, acceptance, and also recognizing barriers. Yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aida. Madam Zarina, please.
Okay, I thought I got away and escaped because I spoke a lot just now. Okay, but never mind. Dr. Ahmad, I can't remember some of my points, but when you want to talk about action, where do you start, right? Where do you start? There's certain types of targets that are interlinked. Like I benefited one thing from Vision 2077. I remembered that the head of Centris, Dr. Akmal, I think, he highlighted that there were 12 clusters. Out of 12 clusters, he said the education cluster is key, and the politics and governance. And I can't remember what the third one was. Maybe Dr. Riyasat can refresh my memory. But it's just by virtue of when you come up with a grand, huge map or a strategic plan, right? Your map. It's like your treasure map. How are you gonna crack the code? How are you gonna crack the code and be this iconic university? Like for me, it's IUM needs to be super duper, or try and be super duper before you can lead. You want to be in a leading position. You want to be the architect of the ummah. But you need to be one of the best for you to even be close to that position, right? And then you've got your engines of growth. You've got to identify who are your main engines, who are your champions, right? That without them you can't move. Without maybe entertainment industry, the entertainment part of the cluster is important, but it's not an engine. Economics is an engine. We will fail if you didn't have economics. So I think that when it comes to action, that's when backcasting is so important. Backcasting is you imagine that people have achieved 2040 or 2077, and now they look back and they're going to tell you, you got to have these three main things. These are critical. Without it, you can't even move. You can't even move. And then you then deep dive into those areas. And then you ask yourself, where are we today? Where are we today? Like for the IT infrastructure, the guys that looked at it were saying, yes, we cannot get the budget. Yes, but we're not completely crippled. We can still move. We can still move. So with what you have, I've heard of an expression when Allah gives you, I say Allah because you're in Islamic university, right? Or God gives you lemon means lemonade. So what do you want to do? What do you want to do? So you do the best with the resources that you have, and you use them strategically, intelligently, be frugal, and try and make big laps and jumps. So I would say that this sort of a mindset, we've got to find people with this type of mindset to champion the area of action, Dr. Ahmad, to champion action and be ruthless. And don't be scared to blow the whistle when you know, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to be really blunt. You've got little Napoleons sitting in the middle of the action and of the management who are just waiting to hijack certain agendas. They don't want to cooperate. They don't like change, because we ran a survey and some of them said, we don't like change. We are afraid of change. And not all of them are little Napoleons. They don't really mean to be little Napoleons. They're scared of change. That's why in the corporate sector, there's something called change management. You got to communicate change, communicate change, communicate change. What do we mean by change? Then you'll find out that some of them don't have the skills that they need to change. And they're scared to even say that, you know what? I don't know how to do these things. I'm scared. What if you find out that I'm not relevant? Are you going to then move into a contract position? And if I'm in a contract position, does it mean that you're not going to renew my contract next year? Because I'm not relevant. I don't know how to churn out nice slides. I don't know how to use Zoom. I don't know how to use Google Meet. There are people that have anxiety attack just because they have to enter a Google Meet meeting. This is real. This is real. And I do find that in this university, I don't hear words like change management. I don't hear words like change management. I hear a lot more of that in other organizations. I hear counseling. I hear coaching, counseling, talent management, talent. They look at talent. The human resource phase in certain organizations are very friendly. They are counselors. They are trained psychologists. They are trained to identify signs of stress in the staff, signs of fear of change. We don't have that in IU. We don't have that in IU. And that worries me. That worries me. So people don't like change. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. Change management, communication. Do your leaders know what IM 2040 is all about? You see, I'm hearing Dr. Ida talk, and something she said is, I'm not sure where she got it from. I don't blame her, because she wasn't privy to it. She wasn't privy to it. Oh, I saw it on a YouTube. And I just came out of a meeting today. We're going to be organizing a futures literacy workshop in April, 2 more. And Tan Sri Rector, Allah bless him, he said, we need to be inclusive. We need to be. He said, you know what? I'm going to put it on YouTube. I was like, what? It's a workshop. It's like, who conducts a workshop on YouTube, right? It's quite funny. But he was saying, okay, for the breakout rooms, there won't be YouTube, but in the main room, he said, we have got to involve everyone. It has to cascade. It has to go down. The students need to know. The staff needs to be included. The kuliahs don't know what's going on. The meeting happened today. I don't know. I'm just looking at this meetings. We've got 10 people right now. I'm not sure where we're faring on YouTube, Dr. Ahmad, but what we're saying today, I really hope it reaches many, many people and not just 10 of us. People are scared of change. They don't know what change entails. What does it mean? Apa maksudnya change? Nak buat apa dengan saya? Apa so maksudnya saya tak boleh duduk kat pejabat ni lagi. Tapi saya tak tahu macam mana nak ada program-program baru ni. Saya stress, tak pandai. So what does it mean? They don't understand the vision IM 2040. They may not understand 2077. All that needs to be done. All that needs to be done slowly, baby steps, baby steps. So I think that we need to have a group of committed people whose job is just to do this. It's just to focus on change and focus on how to change, how to help people change, and how to link our vision to action. Act. Because we have done a lot of talk. Every day talk. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Madam Zarina. Please, Dr. Yasser.
Right, thank you very much. This time I had my mic unmuted myself. Anyway, I'm gonna take continue from where Madam Zarina left off, because she really stole the words out of my mouth when she was talking about change management. And really, so the way, one of the things, like one of the most effective theories of motivation says that in an organization, you have to communicate what your objectives, your strategic direction is, right? The top management, it has to filter down, it has to go so that there is a sense of purpose. And I think we've achieved that at a general level. We all love IIUM. We're here, we're doing more than the usual time we would like to, as in, yeah, given the choice, we would want to go back, but we give more and we keep giving. So I think there is that general commitment there. And so I think this is what we're getting right. But the whole idea of, us not communicating I-2040 and V-2077, I think, especially when we're planning to, embark on this journey and, make a difference, make IIUM relevant, put it back, on top, right? I think this is very critical. So this is one of the main things that we need to do. From the perspective of internal stakeholders, I feel that we need to communicate this and we need to get many, many more people on board, because as I said, this is, I don't think the buy-in is very difficult here. Ideologically, we all agree, right? It's more about, aligning our administrative processes and getting the coordination parts right and making sure everybody's on board so that, there's no dead weight. Like, oh, I don't know what the plan is, right? So I think that's something that needs to happen. It's a great idea. Like I said, philosophically, I was really blown away by it. This whole idea of backcasting and, the future visioning independent of, the past, right? I like that idea a lot. And I think for it to work, for example, if we want our department to move in a certain direction so we can work on the curriculum, right? We need the department members to do it. Everybody needs to do it together, right? So that's the first thing. Internal stakeholders need to be on board. And as I think Dr. Ida mentioned, Madam Zarina mentioned that, there are people with their own agenda, they resist change for different reasons. Yeah, that needs to go, right? So first of all, internal stakeholders, everybody needs to be involved and, they need to know what's happening. Just like, in just like what, under a year, most of the staff body knew what, the roadmap was, right? Almost everybody knows what the SDG agenda is. Everybody knows where the university stands in general, where we want to go, what kind of students we want to build. So that same level of consciousness is required with I-2040 if we want it to meaningfully have an impact. Okay, so then comes the idea of, well, what do we do with V-2077? And obviously, I mean, the idea is that the same thing needs to be extended. But it's not as simple because, we need an ideological buy-in, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, and this is where I think internally and externally responding to, Madam Zarina's suggestion that I don't think I'm at odds with her at this on this at all, that we need a dedicated task force to move things forward. I think that's very true. This idea that we need to be financially independent. Interestingly, like along with the one of the flagships. I think the economics department, along with the finance and basically the cluster, right? We are working on, a Wakaf model that is hopefully more effective. So, we can see signs of moving forward, which is great. Okay. So I think a dedicated task force, where maybe the approach of that task force should be like identifying what is the point of most resistance. Then we tackle that, get rid of that. Then, okay, what's the next point of most resistance? And I think we can move forward that way. That would be a great way to, take a problem-based approach where the task base is able to, remove barrier after barrier so that, we can move forward, hopefully. So that's a great idea. This idea that, it's okay to make mistakes. I do agree if we're talking about small mistakes. But the kind of mistakes I'm talking about are like strategic mistakes in your planning. It's like, you take a 10-year fund or something and put it on the wrong strategy. And then, you're halfway through and you're like, oh, wait, the cart is before the horse. How do we get around this problem? And those are the kind of mistakes I'm talking about. Like, those ones that are very hard to turn back from. Those ones where the students are like, wow, what was this degree all about? How am I going to market myself? Those are the kind of mistakes that I had in mind. Of course, like, there are the minor mistakes, but the ones that I'm referring to are strategic level ones, and that's why I was talking about buy-ins and about, proper coordination between departments and developing, in tandem with each other, making sure everything is, in sync and symbiotic. The final thing I want to address is also a response, this idea that, we don't need change in values. First of all, I disagree with this. I think we'll have to agree to disagree on this. That you say values don't need, our values don't really need to change. But I think, this idea of ethical production, right? The way we need to be environmentally conscious when we do simple things in our everyday life, I think that already is asking us to change our values. That's already implicit. The fact that, when she was saying that, in her poison department, they're saying, oh, well, where's the money? But I care about, having an impact on society. This is a value. So I think there's an implicit recognition of what I'm saying, that, societal values need to change. Otherwise, we're creating, completely balanced people who are agents of change, but nobody wants them. Nobody wants to employ them because we have corporations who just want robots. They don't want people thinking for themselves. They don't want people who are capable of making decentralized decisions. So I think value changes are necessary at every level if we want our ideals to be realized. In this world, like where we are right now, a lot of the things that we say are very fringe. A lot of them are not accepted, right? So when we want policy level change and things like that, they're resisted because of that buy-in. They don't understand the narrative. So how do we change those things? Again, key stakeholders are very important, as I was saying earlier, right? I think it's very important that, government at the federal level, at the state level, for example, the education ministry, we build a dialogue with them, right? As I said, Ma'in, Majlis Agama Islam Negeri, Jakim, right? These are very, very key institutions we need to have relationships with if we want to do proper financing, if we want to raise community level finance, if we want social insurance at community level, so that, if a group of people are unable to take care of themselves, provide for them, at least the community is able to do that. That's a value. We don't have these things, right? So even, for example, the household, the community, how we look at family, the family institution versus a work institution, what do we prioritize these days? Right? How many of us give the attention to the spouse, our spouse, the way we give attention to our bosses, to our colleagues? Isn't that a value that needs to change? So I think there are a lot of inherent things that we're accepting for granted. And as a result of that, we are still, trapped within a certain value system, and we're not able to break free. And I think these are the things that need to change, right? Ethical, green business, we're talking about it, but look at Islamic finance, for example. They resist the Islamic economics narrative. Within that's just, that tells us about the realities of the world we're in, right? And then I told you, I think I tried to elaborate on this idea that how excellence in what we're doing. You know, when I say excellence, what I mean is comprehensive. You know, we're letting our narratives out. Our research is very visible. We're you know, very active on media. We're interfacing with the right groups of people when we are developing our narrative, right? People are aware of it clearly. So we are able to outdo the narratives of other rival institutions who are also competing for, you know, that national curriculum. Because the thing is, IWON 2040 is as relevant, right, to Vision 2077 in terms of its adoption at a national scale. If it is not adopted at a national or, let's say, a state level, then we have not achieved that agenda. We are not able to get to that vision. And it's not okay to say that, oh, you know, it's all right, we make mistakes. It's not. This is what IIUM is about. This is the raison d'etre of IIUM. This is what we want. So I feel that we cannot compromise on this. Of course, we need to mitigate all problems that we have, but you know, we need to act. And I think this idea of a task force is quite good. But I also think that, you know, we need to pay attention, especially to how we're interfacing with the outside world. Like, I love the fact that, you know, our Tan Sri Rector and even Tan Sri Kamal Hassan, right? They have so much presence online when they write things, right? We need to create that kind of image of ourselves so that, you know, people look at the rankings like, what are rankings? Look at them, they care about the planet, right? IIM is an institution that is doing things very differently, and that's the label we need. And others are catching on to the narrative, by the way. So we need to make sure that we stay ahead, we're relevant, and the way to do it is to make sure that we are interfacing with the outside community at all levels. We need to make sure that, you know, our agenda, our curriculum is adopted at that level. Okay, I don't want it to sound very like, you know, conspiracy-like, but what I'm saying is we need change, right? The idea is that we need proper buy-ins, and we need to have society shaped according to the values that we want, so that we create students, right? And we create agents of change, and, you know, they are able to do so without resistance from institutions, right? Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much.
Can I just respond to Riaz that I stand corrected, Riaz that I guess, I suppose what I was thinking in my head was values that were already good and acceptable.
Okay.
That don't have to change just because you want to change your environment. That's what I meant, I guess. I suppose I should have explained.
No worries.
But yes, I understand. And mistakes. The focus should not be on having already done the mistakes. Like you said, mitigation. The focus shouldn't be like, and I wasn't really talking about small mistakes too. I am really talking about big mistakes, disastrous mistakes, or policy changing mistakes, you know. But the focus shouldn't be you made the focus should be how are we going to. It's okay to make the mistakes, you know, but at least do something about it. Don't swipe it under the carpets that we see often a lot, like or hiding it behind you know, nicer curtains, or behind ceremonies and all that. That's what I meant, actually. Yeah, I don't know. This is a tough job, you know. Whoever thought about all this is really is really strong, you know. And I think it is a strong team. I hope the ones who are in the audience would play a role, because it's not going to be easy. It cannot be done by one person.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Aida. Before we conclude our discussion today, because we are reaching the 2 hours now, I'm going to go back to the point raised by Madam Zarina just now about the resisting changes. Maybe some people might thought that you know, people still want change, but maybe if you mentioned that some people are not actually receptive to the change, do you have any specific research or observation on this? Would you comment about that? Yeah, Ms. Zarina?
Your mic.
Yeah. Can you hear me just now?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
well, yes, because when we did like a poll study, right? There was a number, a significant number that said that they are not comfortable with change. It's a small sample size, but it tells you, and I'm not surprised because I've done change management before in other organizations. And most organizations where you've got people who have served a community or been in that position for 20 years, 23 years, you've been in that company or that organization for decades, and suddenly you want to change. They would be comfortable if you make it comfortable. If you make change comfortable, if you make change as a normal, it's the normal affair. If a company had always revised and sent their staff for, and I'm not just talking about training, I'm talking about you've got a lot of people go for training, and then when they come back from the training courses, I tell you what happens. Because I was involved in training, so I speak from my own experience. They would say, when we go back to our organization and we try and implement the changes that we learn, we are not supported by our bosses. We're not supported by our colleagues. Change is not easy. Change is not easy. So that's why when you do change management, you need to start from the top right down to the bottom. The leadership needs to want change. Then the second level of leadership needs to want change. The third level, all the leaders. And then, Dr. Ahmad, there are two types of leaders. You've got the social leaders, and you've got the organizational leaders. The social leaders are those without the name cards, but they call attention. People listen to them. They're like natural ring leaders. And there was a project that I did once with the Kementerian, and these ring leaders are very important. Because the organizational leader says you change, but the ring leaders don't want to change. The ones below them won't listen. They won't listen for whatever reason. Sometimes it's fear. It's genuine fear. So they don't feel relevant, or they don't know what are the skills, or they don't understand your vision.
Yeah, do you think that is a good idea if we run a study on the people who want change or do not want change in our organization? What is your take on that?
Definitely. 6,000 people, we should. We really should. Are these your questions, Dr. Ahmad? Or is it coming from the audiences? Because I don't know what's happening in the YouTube. Do we have a YouTube?
This is my question, actually.
Okay. I'm just wondering whether it would be great if it came from audiences. No, I really think, actually, Dr. Irwan, we discussed it 1 or 2 months ago. I really think, Dr. Ahmad, it would be great if you facilitated. I know a corporate company, they had 10,000 staff, 10,000 people. And the CEO, he was really serious. He spent a lot of money coming up with a wall of he used technology. I don't know what the wall's called. When you want to advertise, it's actually on the wall where people are queuing to go into the lift. Like beribu-ribu orang nak naik lift. So like they have to berdiri lama, long time. There's a wall there. And on that wall, he electrically put in 4 to 6 main questions only about certain things about the company. And he said email. He gave email, and he said you can also call. But people who want to, kaki pukul, nak blasa, nak marah, nak bambu, they don't want to call. They will email. So he said you can provide your name, or you don't have to provide your name. It's up to you. So 10,000 people in the company, and they had money to invest. So they had a team whose job was just to collect all the email and the feedback. So some people, tulus ikhlas, tulis nama. My name is Siti something and whatever. And others, my God, I can't believe I forgot to take my phone, right? I am so sorry. This is so unacceptable. So some people were very sincere, comfortable. They wrote their names. Some people did not, but they didn't care. So the CEO got the team to vet through the answers and presented slides and did a statistical data on it, like how many percentage were happy to move companies, how many percentage did not want this particular product, how many percentage hated the head of HR, and why. And why? Specific, injustices, insurance, health coverage, bullying, sexual harassment, behavior in the car parks, the guards, whatever. Anyway, all that was collated, Dr. Ahmad, and eventually they took action. And it influenced the strategic plan of the company. So legitimate suggestions that were solid. He wrote the name of the person who recommended it. Orang-orang yang memang tulus ikhlas, serious, ada data, nak share. And that person said, I feel dihargai, that pandangan saya tu dihargai. There was one lady in that company, I got to tell you, she is a director in the highest senior management office, highest. She does not have anything, Dr. Ahmad, but an SPM. Only SPM. And she is sitting among Tan Sris and Datos because she was in that company for over 2 decades. She was moved from department to department. She can tell you back and forth everything like a computer because she knows. She's so practical. And because the CEO gave her that chance to email her feedback, that was, he managed to find out betul-betul siapa staff dia yang tulus ikhlas, siapa yang memang ada talent untuk membantu, siapa nak walk the talk, siapa yang akan betul-betul jimat duit syarikat. He found out. So he was all his leaders, and then you've got other, he didn't care. I'm going to the bottom. I'm going to dig to the bottom. And he did it. I feel IIU should do the same. I don't think it's a crazy idea. I don't know. Is it expensive? We have email. We've got many students. I know that we can get easily 20, 30 student volunteers who will love this project and do it. It can be done. Call me crazy or gung-ho. I think can be done. Dr. Ahmad, you lead. Dr. Irwan lead. I will do my other reports. I'm joking. But I think it's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May Allah guide us and give us a way out. Yeah, because I think with no action, no communication plan, I've been in this organization for 5 months. It's very sad. I've seen people working in silos. I've seen people not wanting to share resources. I see people entering a meeting, everything's good. After the meeting ends, and then you try and get help, left, right, center, like a beggar, right? No one helps. I see a lot of talk. They're very territorial. They have got the little walls around them, the little kingdom. And don't touch me, don't touch my staff, don't touch. So it's I've never seen this so much in other organizations. This is my university. I graduated from this university. And I'm really sad this is happening. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think now we are reaching the end of our discussion. I think it is worth this 2 hours of discussion. And if I may conclude briefly, I would say that I am now at a very critical juncture because of the age, because of the challenges, because of a lot of things which is going on right now. And everybody is actually aware of this. And we are grateful because we have a vision that is 2040 and 2077. And I think that it can guide us to move forward from now. And however, we need everybody to get involved. And I would like to end this discussion with a quote. Actually, there is a President Kennedy before he used to say that don't ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. I think it's the same thing. Maybe we should say the same thing to our university. Don't ask what university can do for you, but ask what you can do for your university. I think with that note, I would like to thank the organizer for putting up this together, the event. I really hope that those people who are listening to this discussion take the point and input from our discussion in good faith. We are not here to slaughter anybody. We are here actually to save our university, to move our university forward. And if there is something that we say is gone overboard or something wrong, we apologize. And We hope that we can work together to realize the vision of and mission of our university. We end here with Surat Al-As and Tasbih Kafar.